So there it is. Okay, so we got brother Kev here, Coach Kev, right? Um, so one of the things that when we look at numbers, like it is a challenge. Like for instance, we all know at one point in our career, the goal was I just either have to learn to talk to people. I'm talking about real estate, not just like when you're a child. I'm saying as you're in real estate. Love Dave. Good morning. So
Hey, how are you guys?
good, brother. Good, good.
Going on.
So when we start in real estate, the challenge becomes sometimes, okay, I need to talk to people. Like that is the first thing. So it's usually I'm not talking to anyone is a challenge. I'm not talking to enough people. I'm not saying the right things, or I'm not talking to the right people. Right? That's usually the challenge. But once we get into that rocking and rolling, and we get into, what, I'm naturally a talker, or for example, I'm adapting to talking, right? And now I'm getting it. Then we look at, well, okay, is this is me by me talking to people? Am I one reaching my goals? Right? Hey, you know what, Kev? Today this week I talked to a lot of people, but I didn't get my goals. I didn't get a number two, not a bowel movement, but an appointment, right? Oh, this I'm doing a bunch of door knocks, um, but I didn't get a lead. I didn't feed my database. Okay, so how do you start to decipher? Why is it so like morbidly dark in my house? It's just clouds, man. I tell you, what is this, Florida? No offense. So, so then you start to say, well, am I reaching enough people? Then you look at the four things. Okay, well, I am talking to people, so I can check that box, right? But what am I saying? Am I saying the right things? Okay, well, how do we know if I'm saying the right things? How can we know that? Something we do on Mondays.
Role play.
Role play, right? That's one of the best ways to know, am I saying the right things? Okay. Well, how do we know besides that? How else do we know if I'm talking to the right people? I'm sorry. Am I talking enough, or am I saying the right things? How do you know that without? Okay, let me shut up. I'm going too fast. How else can we know that? There we go. Some sunlight, artificial.
How else can we know what part?
Sorry, I
If
know
we
I'm
talk
confusing
enough
myself.
people.
So if I say, Dwayne, I'm talking to, I'm pretty sure I had a lot of conversations. How do I differentiate between, am I saying it enough? Am I saying the right thing, or am I talking to the right people?
How can you differentiate the which one it is
Mm-hmm.
by I mean, I guess keeping track of it.
He said it. It's the numbers. It's the numbers, right? We don't want we want to get to the point where yes, we are talking, and yet we don't want to just keep talking, and then we're mistaking movement for achievement. So having an accountability spreadsheet helps you realize, one, am I talking to enough? If I am I saying the right things? Could be a conversion issue, right? Am I okay? I have a conversion issue, or I hit enough people. I'm getting high conversion, but I'm not getting my goal. Well, it could be who we're talking to. So when you look at this chart, this kind of falls along the lines of the five things we do, right? And I'm gonna give you an example, right? So the first thing we do is what? What are the five things we do in real estate? What's the first thing? Right? Yeah, good job, Lovely. What's the answer? Lovely, what are your thoughts? What's the first thing we do?
Sorry, I'm in a call right now. I'm gonna be right back. My bad.
Okay, you're good, bro. You're good. He's lead genning. He's doing it. He's lead genning. Right? No, you're
Yeah.
good. So contacts is the lead gen part, the lead follow up. I can't lead generate unless I talk to people about real estate, right? I mean, you can't have a conversation about real estate unless you talk to someone or text someone or whatever it is. So we look at context first. If someone is saying to me, man, Kev, or if I say to Kev, I'm not getting enough buyer number twos, consultations. Well, what do I look at first? Well, how many people are you talking to? Right? If I say, okay, Dwayne, Dwayne, help me out, man. I'm not getting enough buyers or sellers. First thing you look at first is, well, how many people are you talking to? What do they say a top producing agent? What is the amount they should be? How many conversations should they have in a week? Mm-hmm.
1,000.
1,000 conversations in a week. I love it. What do they say? At a minimum, a top producing agent should hit a week. And I will say, look, Monday through Friday is the structure of lead generation. Obviously, Saturdays, some days could be open houses, event. Should be hitting about 100, right? We should be shooting for 100 contacts a week. You don't know if you're saying the right things or if you're talking to the wrong people if you don't have a constant variable. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah.
Like, how do I know that, okay, Kev is not saying the right thing if 1 week he's doing 4, the next week 90, the next week 10? It's not consistent enough to know the data enough. We don't have consistent data to then know, am I saying the right things and am I talking to the right people? Does that kind of make sense? Right? There's no way to know because you could be saying the things, but you're not saying it enough. So we need to focus on saying one, doing it, and then doing it enough. Right? Now, once we do the contacts, what is the average amount that an agent, let's say an average agent, just a regular agent that's in the 20%, of agents, what is generally the contact to lead ratio an agent will have? For every how many contacts should they get a pre-qualified lead? And let's say these are all database relationship touches.
So how many what? My bad. How many?
How many contacts to a lead will we
Um,
need if I'm only talking to people I know? Let's not talk. Let's not add because there's a different conversion ratio for, transactional. But if I'm
mhm.
only talking to my database or people I know, generally speaking, what is the average amount of conversations I need to get a pre-qualified lead?
Isn't it
Uh,
like 100 contacts with 2 leads?
For you said 2 leads. Was that
Yeah,
love that you said?
well, like
Yeah.
you have to have 100 conversations to get at least 1 to 2 leads.
So I was gonna say, and perfect. I was gonna say it's about 30 to 50 contacts to one lead. So it's the same, right? I just said it
Yeah.
differently, right? Yes. It takes about, and again, these are not transactional. These should be higher conversion because these are relationships, but it's about 30 to 50, right? I mean, we used to keep track. Well, when we keep track of numbers, there's agents that know it's like for every 10, they have such a high skill level that for every 10 contacts they can get a lead, right? Again, not transactional, right? Relationship. So again, it's very easy to know if I need an X amount of leads, I can go backwards and use this is how many contacts I need in terms of database touches, right? Once we have, again, how do you know what the goal is? How many contacts if you don't know what the goal is, right? So it always makes sense to have what is the goal? How many leads do I want a month? If I want, let's say my average conversion ratio is 30 to 1, and I want 4 strong referral leads a month, how many contacts do I need a week?
You want? You said how many you want?
If I
30?
want, let's say 2 leads a week, and let's assume it's 4 weeks in a month, and
Uh-huh.
I'm at a 30 to 1, and I'm not doing any transactional. Let's pretend because that's another
Mhm.
thing, right? Obviously, we need both. But what I'm saying is, and I say, you know what? I want 2 leads a week, and I'm at a 30-1. How many
So
contacts are you?
you need to talk to 60 people.
At least. So if I say, on average, are we going to talk to 60 people and I may get 5 one week? Am I going to talk to 60 people or 59 and I get 1? Sure, right? But if Love Deep says to me, Steve, I want 2 repeat relationship leads a week and 1, okay, well, great. What's the conversion ratio? Well, we don't know. But let's say we do know. Steve, I looked at my numbers. At every 30, I get 1 lead. Great. We got that. We checked that box, right? So now we say, great, Love Deep. So how many contacts do we need? On average, 60. Let's say 4 weeks go by and Love Deep's like, man, Steve, and obviously this is not the case. I'm just picking your name out.
That's fine.
he's like,
That's fine.
he's like, yeah, I'm gonna slash your tires. I'm kidding. And so Love Deep's like, Steve, I didn't reach my goal. I only got 1 lead in a month. And I said, okay, well, how many contacts you got every week? 4. Well, clearly we know the disconnect, right? And so once we have those numbers, now let's say Love Deep's like, man, I'm getting 70 contacts a week, but I'm only getting 1 lead, sometimes 0. Well, now I can know what do I need to work on out of the 4 things? Probably what then?
Probably like what you saying.
Yeah. He said, what you saying? Like all smooth. Yes. Again, we don't know what we need to work on until we keep track, right? So now we understand the contact to lead ratio. And you guys already know, I already said this a long time ago. So everyone's already heard this, but I'm just saying it again, right? Contact to lead ratio. Now, we know then, okay, for every lead, and again, we're only using database stuff because transactional, the conversion ratio, you're going to get a lot more lead question marks, right? Comparably, because you're more talking to lead question mark. Let's say we're still using the relationship side of this, and let's say it's like, you know what? My goal is 1 listing appointment a week. Okay, so now what changes in that 30-1? Those 30 contacts, what changes about that? Or what changes with that? Not about that.
Probably I was gonna say what you saying.
Yeah, or how about the other one? What you're saying, maybe I have to make it a point. Hey, Kevin, it was great talking to you. I did my fluff. By the way, we're looking for people looking to sell because we have so. I want to make sure I'm being intentional that I want to get a listing lead, right? So what I say, and then the other thing, who am I talking to? If I'm only talking to first-time home buyers, then how am I going to get a lead, right? So that's where, right? So we have to be intentional about what we're saying and what we want based on our goals, right? So again, so let's say then we'll use Love Deep because today's your day. Happy birthday, Love Deep. So so now Love Deep's at 30-1 conversion ratio, contact to lead ratio. He's talking to 30 people. Either he's talking to or he's mentioning the intentionality of, hey, by the way, we're looking for people that are looking to sell in a couple of months, whatever it is, the script he says, right? Great. Now he's getting listing leads. Now I can see, man, Love Deep, you're getting 2 listing leads a month. Sorry, a week, right?
No. What a blessing.
He's like, yeah, let's keep it going. He's like, let's make it happen right now.
Yeah.
So now I'm scheduling listing leads, or listing appointments. So now I'm scheduling a listing appointment. Sorry, that was my boss, my beautiful boss. Yes, please. So she asked for coffee world because this is going to be on YouTube. So Love Deep is scheduling listing appointments. What is from a listing appointment to a listing agreement signed, what is that conversion ratio? Meaning I go to a listing appointment, and let's assume, Dwayne, the one we went on yesterday, the other day, ooh, thank you. The ones we went on, is this for Chase? Oh, okay. The one we went yesterday, or Saturday, that was really more of a listing consultation, right? We would agree it wasn't. But
Right.
let's say Love Deep goes to a listing appointment. They're pre-qualified. He got a sales net sheet, and from appointment to signed agreement, what is that conversion ratio we should be on? We should shoot for.
From appointment to sign.
Yeah. So appointment went on to agreement signed.
Shoot for 100%.
Oh, I love it. That's 100%, right? That's the football in you. 100%. But let's say, because we can't control other factors. What is the and actually, I'm sorry. Let's go back a little bit, right? Let's say Love Deep is scheduling them, but he's not going in them. First of all, what is the conversion ratio from appointment schedule to appointment went on? So if I schedule Love Deep schedules a listing appointment for Saturday, but he goes on there and he goes, so that's 100%, right? What should that conversion ratio? It's reasonable. Obviously, the answer is always 100%, yes. And relationships, right? That's the other answer everyone says. What should be that statistic though that we should go on, right? Or what should it be? Take a guess. Lovely, what are your thoughts? It's your listing, Lovely. What are your thoughts?
I think it's more like if you're only going on one appointment and trying to get that agreement, I'm not sure what that, you like the goal is when you get in that appointment to get the agreement signed, right? But I guess,
Yes, yes.
yeah, but I guess like if you're going on multiple appointments, you're trying to ask for like what ratio. I guess it's like,
Yes. Yes.
um, if it's 50-50, I would say, because you can get it signed or you can't get it signed.
Well, let
Yeah.
me rephrase, Love Deep. I'm sorry, and I did ask that question, then I went back a little. I'm sorry.
Mm.
So let's say from the appointment scheduled to the appointment went on, meaning they don't cancel, right? So if you schedule for Sunday, what is the percentage that's going to stick? Or let's say you schedule 2 for Sunday. What is the percentage that you should be able to go on that one? Let's go back a little bit. My apologies.
Yeah.
Go-
I think,
Take a guess.
um, I don't know. I don't know any number, but I think it's also up to you on how how much you're communicating with that client
Yes.
and like you have to keep checking up on them like, hey,
Yes.
just checking you're going to be there, or you're I'll see you then, and sending them reminders like calendar invites,
I love
tags,
that.
and so to make sure they don't flake on you,
Yes.
and to make sure that you're there, and then you yourself be ready with material, your presentation,
Yes. So,
a blank agreement, just you know,
and you,
you're
you said
there.
it. You said it. It was actually a trick question, and you answered it correctly. That's because it's your birthday today. It's not really, but you said it. It could be anywhere from 0% to 100% based on how much follow up you do before the appointment. I love that was the right. The more you can, send them reminders, put it on the calendar, maybe send them a video about the listing, what to expect, send them a pre-listing packet, send them reminders. The more you can do it, the better. I will say, in all fairness, if you can get to 80 to 90%, that's awesome, right? And you're right. That is something you can control in terms of how much I can input. But there's factors you can't. And I would say 80 to 90% of appointments set to went on, right? Now, and that's a great point, Love You. I'm glad you said that. The more you put in there to keep top of mind, the more stronger it's going to be. I love that. And especially if these are relationships, they're going to have a higher conversion ratio anyway, right? So now let's get into, okay, so I go to the agreement. I'm sorry. I go to the appointment, and not a consultation, but let's say appointment. What is generally the percentage? And there is a number that's out there that they say we should shoot for, right? But a percentage from going on to the appointment to getting that listing signed. Does anyone want to take a guess what that percentage is?
Sorry, can you repeat that? What you just said? What was the question?
So now this is kind of like where you were answering that first part, right? What's the percentage of agreement went on? Keep saying the A. Appointment went on to agreement signed, assuming they're a pre-qualified seller. What is that percentage we should be shooting for from the factors we can control?
Um, like you said, 80 to 90%.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
if you're doing everything properly, and you like bring in comps, and you convey your message well,
Hmm.
be able to get it signed.
I love it. And that's a great point. You know the difference, and I will tell you, and we'll talk about buyers in a little bit, but the beautiful thing with a listing is if they're pre-qualified, and when I'm saying by pre-qualification, the seller's net sheet makes sense, right? Meaning like, oh, great, we can sell your house, but you owe 50,000 at closing. Like that doesn't make sense, right? And their goal makes sense. And sometimes with a sell buy, the buy part has to make sense for the sell part makes sense. But you're right. In that fact, it's a lot of more what we can control in that. They say that average it should be 70. I think 80 to 90 should be easy. 80 to 90. I think if I look at my numbers, I'm probably in the high 90s if I were to keep track of every listing appointment. I think there's very few that I probably didn't get that I lost to another agent, or sometimes they just don't have the goal after talking, right? But you're right. And a lot of that is they're pre-qualified, so we know the willing, ready, and ableness is there. It's am I conveying the right message, right? Am I saying the right things? So again, let's say this then. All right, Kev, he's getting listing appointments scheduled, but he's not going on. Well, how do I know if that's a challenge or what to work on? I got to keep track of the numbers.
Yeah.
I got to keep track. That's the only way to know. Because I can say, all right, and I love deep. We'll pretend it's Kevin's birthday for today. Kevin, you're hitting 30 to 1. You're getting two listing or 60. You're hitting 60 contacts. Well, let's just do the same thing. Kev, you're getting 60 contacts. You're getting two listing appointments, leads that you make into appointments, and yet you're not showing up or you're not showing up. Okay, well, in the mix of other things, it's like, all right, well, where's the disconnect? If I don't keep track of those, and I'm sure that's going to be a pain point where you're going to keep track of, then it's like, all right, Kev, then what are we doing? Are we what we're doing? Is it strong enough? Are we doing what Love Deep said? Are we sending them calendar invites? Are we doing this? Are we doing that? Pre-listing, all that. But let's say then, okay, let's use Kev again. Same thing. He's getting it. He's at an 80% listing appointment set. So went on, but he's at a 50% agreement sign. Then what do we need to work on probably?
Probably what you're saying.
His listing presentation, right? Again, how do you know unless you keep track? And I know, trust me, I despise this. Until my coach said, Steve, how do you know what to work on if you don't know what you're keeping track of? I was like, oh, thanks, coach. Coach Robert Camacho, by the way. Awesome coach.
Yeah.
So that's one of where we have to look at. Okay, great. Now the new self leads is in general. That's something that, and for the purposes of this, this is just something we created. But these are things to look at, right? Now let's skip over that because that's just a stat that we keep on our team. Let's look at new buyer consultations scheduled and went on. Same thing, same metric. Am I locking him in? Am I doing what Love Deep does? Am I sending them reminders? Am I sending them a pre-listing? I probably wouldn't send a pre-listing in the mail, but am I sending them a pre-listing back in the email? Because that's a lot of buyer consultation you're probably setting. It's a lot of FedEx. Am I doing reminders, right? We know though with buyers, and there's no offense to buyers, but we know the conversion is a little bit different from a seller to list to sell rather than the buy to there, right? So what would you say, what we know about, because there's a lot of factors with buyers, but from the consultation schedule to the consultation went on, what do we say is a pretty average number of that we should be reaching? Scheduled to went on. Using your experience, again, nothing wrong with buyers, but using your experience in the buyer and the seller. Take a guess.
Say it one more time.
What would you say is a percentage? We know with listings, right? If they're pre-qualified, we do all that stuff. If we do the best that we can control, it's probably 89, 90% that I can go from an appointment scheduled to an appointment going to, right? For a buyer consultation schedule to win on, what is usually what is that amount that we can do? Like, what is that amount we should be shooting for?
That 80 to 90 probably.
You think? What are your thoughts, Love Deep, on that?
I think it's you know, buyers maybe a little bit less because you know but I feel like sometimes buyers flake a lot more. It's easier to flake, you know, and getting them pre-qualified, you know, they don't understand how, you know, like the pre-qualification process. Like they can
Mm-hmm.
literally get a call from the bank, like, "Hey, I make this much. Can you give me a letter?" And
Mm-hmm.
that letter is just based on that phone call, not them sending any information in.
I love it.
So
I love it. You know what's and you're right, Love Deep. In the whole buying process, there's a lot of variables that really only the buyer can control. And because of that, those variables kind of make it a challenge for buyers to really invest 1,000% more, right? They may have the question, the objection of, well, I may not pre-approve, so what's the point of sitting down with Love Deep, right? Or what's the point of sitting down with Dwayne? I'm not sure. That's why it's so important to really give a strong value to close. Look, even if you don't pre-approve now, it's about setting up the goals. It's about setting up the plan. And that's where a strong value to close, a strong reminder, like Love Deep said, is really gonna get that consultation from schedule to when on, right? So here's the other thing now. Well, what's next? You notice how this is the number one to number two thing, right? So after a buyer sits down with you, generally, where do they go next? Or sometimes you may do both at the same time. Is what? The buyer's with a lender. So let's say then, okay, Dwayne has did, let's say he did 20 buyer consultations. Let's say he did 20 buyer consultations in a month. Let's use a week. Let's make it easy for a week. Let's say he did 5 buyer consultations in a week schedule. He went on 3 of them, right? And I would say that average should be around 70-ish%, right? I've seen 50, but it's like 70, right? Obviously you want the more. But let's say he did 10. I'm making it easy. Let's say 10, and then he went on 7 of them, right? Because he's a high producer. Great. He's reaching the 70. Though those consultations went on the 7, only 3 of them went with the lender. First of all, what should be the percentage that goes with the lender? If you went on scheduled 10 buyer consultations, you went on 70%. How many of that 70%, assuming the goal is now, I'm saying, right, 0 to 3 months. Sometimes we have consultations for cool. How many should be going with the lender? What do you think is that percentage?
it could be like 50-50, you know, if you tell them what to do, you know, and they do it. So
If you
uh,
tell them what to do. Yeah, I would say 50 to 70%,
yeah.
right? Because again, there's still a variable that they have to willing to invest,
Mhm.
and it's a lot more things involved with a buyer side. Again, I'm not saying one is better than the other. There's still more things that have to be done on the buyer side by everyone compared to a pre-qualified, meaning realtor pre-qualified seller, right? As long as the goals make sense. So only if you're doing 7 out of those 7, maybe only 1 goes to the lender. Now I can say, well, what do I need to look at? Probably, Dwayne. If I talk to those 7, only 1 actually goes with on average. Let's say not, 1 week could be different. What could be something that out of those 4 things, right? What is probably the challenge there?
What you saying?
There you go. Now you're gonna get a tattoo. What you say?
What you saying?
What are you saying? How are you doing the value to close to say, great, the next step? Are you even saying that? Sometimes it could be you're not even saying anything, right? I don't think that's the case, right? So it could be, okay, great. Am I saying the next step? And am I showing the value to talk to the lender, right? Again, we don't know that until we keep track of the numbers, right? That's the whole theory for today. So now we got new buyers with lender. Let's say then we'll use out of that seven, let's say four of them go with the lender. From the seven consultation went on, four of them went with the lender. Now, how many should be show ready?
Don't know what the lender say.
Say again, buddy. Sorry, say again.
You know what the lender say.
Well, what's usually an average, that the percentage from new buyers with lender, assuming they're all 0 to 3 months, you know what I'm saying? Not like working on a lending plan. What generally is the average or the conversion ratio? It's probably the same numbers that we've been saying, 50 to 70, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if though let's use three again, or let's use four, and only one pre-approves on average, then what is probably the challenge I'm having?
Who I'm talking to?
Who I'm talking. You see how it's either one of those four. Am I talking to the right people that I want to talk to? Or could it be I need to be saying something different to show a value to start a game plan earlier for certain people, right? But it could be who am I talking to? And there's nothing wrong. We want to help everyone, and yet we need to be intentional, right? So, okay, we get the show readies. Now let's say out of those three that are with the lender, let's say two are show ready. Okay, great. Now from pending, show ready to pending. You notice how these are going through the 1, 2, 3, 4, right? These, if you look at it, it's 1, 2, and then 3 show, and then now making offers. I got the three that are show ready, but I'm not getting any pendings. Because what should be the percentage here? If you have pre-approved buyers, what should be the percentage from them to move to the next step of getting ratified for a buyer?
70 to 100. Like
Yeah.
if
Hey, you said
they're
100. I love
yeah. Well, I think what you've been saying, we're kind of going through that right now.
I love that, right? And so that is one of the challenges is, like you said, right? And obviously, I'm gonna be honest. If you said the right things and you said it enough, and they still don't, then that would be in that percentage of the 10 to 20 that it doesn't work, right? But for the most part, like for example, right? In this case, there's only so much you can control. And if you guys set the expectation, you set a show ready expectation as we call it, and they still can't move forward, that's why they have that buffer of the 10 to 30%, right? But in general, it should be 70%. What if it's, no one? Then we look at, am I setting the show ready expectation? Like when they're pre-approved, great. So here's the next step. Are we revisiting price size location? Are we locking in the dates right away? Are we setting up the properties for them to pick in the MLS, right? What if then it's, when I'm showing the property, am I setting the expectation of what the goal is? Am I doing where I'm narrowing down, right? As long as we look at, if we see that, and I lost whatever the number was, but let's just use percentage. If my new show ready, the new pendings is under 50% or under 70, then it's like, what are we saying? Or am I saying it enough? First of all, am I saying it? What are we saying? And if I'm saying it enough, right? Because there's always, and in between each step, we've noticed there's some metric that we can tell is, okay, am I doing the show ready? Am I setting the example? Am I being assertive and explaining the process in terms of what's the next step, blah, 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 right? So I love that. What if, this is an interesting one, what if you're doing 70% in his new pendings, and we're talking buyers right now. We'll talk about listing new pendings, but they're not closing. Because the percentage of that should be what? From new pending to new close.
100%.
I mean, I'd say like 99.9. I mean, it happens. Let's say
Yeah.
90% to be fair, because stuff happens, right? I mean, we don't want to think about this. This is the one that hurts, as we all know, because we're like, sure, if it's, if they're in the 20% beginning of the process is different than the 10% of not closing in there. What could be a reason there? Think about it. We're representing a buyer. What could be the challenge there?
I think, if you're impending and you're going to close, like there should be that's probably on our part more so. Like we need to make sure like all the I's are dotted, T's are crossed, and it has to be some, severe case where they don't make it to close.
Yeah.
Um, right? Because it should be like ready to go and nothing getting in that way. But like you said, it happened to us. Stuff does happen
This
where
stuff does happen.
we were right there and we couldn't get to close, and we kept trying, but still couldn't get to that finish line.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
that percentage, like you said, is like 99%, but that 1% can still happen.
Yep. And
Yeah,
and and what's and 1,000%. And here's the thing, because there's a lot. Let me rephrase. There's not a lot that we can control other than setting the expectation. Maybe in a home inspection, maybe we're setting the wrong expectation, right? And I'm thinking, if what could happen in a transaction, right? What if it's a bad not a bad home inspector? What if, let me rephrase that. What if I'm not setting the right expectation in the home inspection? What if I'm not setting the expectation of how the transaction is going to be, how it can feel stressful, right? Well, let's say I do all that and it's still not closing high. What if it's a bad lender? I mean, I'm not trying to be mean. What if
yeah,
it's a bad lender? What if it's a bad title rep that didn't see something they should have saw in the abstract, in the search, right? What if it's, and again, I'm focusing on the stuff that we can control. I mean, sometimes the sellers change their mind, whatever, stuff happens, right? But it's whatever I can control that I set that expectation of a home inspection. We know the home inspection is the biggest part where deals usually can blow up, right? Assuming you have a good lender and
yeah.
title and all that stuff. Other than that, it should be, I would say, 90% ish, right? Let's say
Mm.
let's say 85. Let's say, and 10% is home inspection, 5% is the random stuff, right? So again, we look at these, and it's, again, we look at it and say, if I don't know why it's not working or what's happening, or I don't know what the challenge is, why I'm not getting to my goal, then I ask, are we looking at our numbers? And especially, it can get really, it's very easy to do a lot of deals, a lot of deals, and forget about, well, and again, I'm not saying if you have one, we're not relying on one deal, obviously, and yet we need to do a lot and still keep track of our numbers, right? Now, let's go back a little bit on the listing side of things, right? So from a listing, we already know the 80 to 90% listing appointment signed, right? Now, from a listing active to a pending, what should be that percentage? So meaning you put it in the MLS and it gets under contract. And I know I'm kind of jumping around.
Like,
Think
like 80 to 90,
list 80 to 90 said?
70 to 90?
I'd say probably 80.
Well, yeah.
Yeah,
80, because from the time you put it on the MLS to
to getting it pending.
Oh,
Yeah.
pending.
Now, assuming days in the market, I mean, we can't control the
Uh,
market, right? So our job is to sell it for the most money. Sometimes the most money is not list price. We can't control that. The most money, the shortest amount of time, based on the market conditions, right? It should be probably 80 to 90, because there's a lot of factors that we can help explain, right? Compared to a lot of variables with a seller we can't, right? Now, from those pendings to closings, right? I would say it falls along the same lines of, the 80 or 90% ish, that from a pending to close. Because on the listing side is a little bit less due diligence you have to do compared to the buyer side. You just hope the buyer's agent does their job, right? To set expectations, right? Okay. What do you guys make of this? What are some ahas, some questions, concerns? What do you got? Oh, I'm sorry. Let me rephrase. Let's say let me go back. Sorry, I'm getting a little too excited. I have new contacts added to the database because that's part of am I doing activity to feed? That's a metric that you can see I'm doing transactional things to feed my database, right? Because in the process of looking for transactional leads, lead question marks, I should be feeding my database, right? Even my lead question marks are feeding my database. So that's a metric we use to say how much transactional lead generating are you doing, right? Obviously, we all want repeat referrals. That's the number one. And yet we need to do that. So when someone is like, I'm not getting enough, lead question marks, or I'm not doing, and I say, how many people you're adding to your database? One a week. We know they're not talking to enough transactional situations, right? And then obviously, if you look at total buyers with lender, immediate, you can see if you go back from the time we put it, new buyers with lender to the end, it's probably like a 50% if you break it all down, maybe 25 to 50% from new buyers with lender to close. So you can see based on the total buyers with lender you have, what could be your pipeline. Does that kind of make sense on that
Yeah.
part? Okay. So what are some ahas, some questions, some thoughts?
I
This is
think
good.
it's
This helped
definitely
me.
good. It's definitely
Sorry.
good to keep track, where everyone's at in their phase, because the the more clients you get, um, you want to know where they're at, and moving their numbers around, doing all that stuff just helps you, especially when you're growing. Because you it can get easy to lose someone as you're going along.
Hmm.
You can focus on one client and not the rest. And that can easily happen. And it's not like you're doing it on purpose, but life gets busy, and it stuff just happens.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Aside from it keeping you accountable, it also helps you know what I may need to work on or what I need to improve, right? Dwayne, what are your thoughts, brother?
I would say one thing I kind of felt like we said a lot. One was in common was what you're saying. So,
Hmm.
like, what do you say? So I think a lot of it is again like who you're. I mean, yeah, like who you're based off like what your goals is, who you're talking to, that target, audience. And I think once you have that, a lot of it, if it's gonna move to the next step, I feel a lot of it is gonna come down to what you're saying. I think it's.
Hmm.
I mean, I think a lot of that's kind of sums it up. I mean, because at this point, all we're doing is trying to guide, and
Hmm.
guide kind of verbally, really, or through text or email or whatever. But and that verbiage. So I think a lot of it is what you're saying. So and then the percentages was aha too, like the percentage from when something goes, sure should
Hmm.
be or whatever. So yeah.
I love that. And the challenge is, right, is we want to keep track of that because that essentially goes from a number one to number two, number three, those processes. At the same time, we still need to do number one constantly. Like the contact part of this must never stop. We just because we have 5 listing appointments, 4 buyers with lenders, 2 shows readies, 7 under contract. That contact number drops, we're screwing ourselves, right? And I actually loved you. We were talking about this the other day. It's a good problem to have because if your contacts are stopping,
Yeah.
you're hurting our future. So you either need to time block better or leverage some things, right? Like and there's stories that I told you guys. An agent can close 4 or 5 a month, but if it's getting in the way of like showings, I'm saying if it's getting in the way of the one thing, that's when this starts to happen. And that's where that by seeing that, I got to reach my contact, then I can work on everything else, right? And that's the goal. Can you imagine then when there's probably teams out there or an agent, let's say, because maybe they look at it collectively, but all those numbers we looked at, they're like in the 30s each one. And their numbers, I guarantee you, their contact numbers are still at like high consistently. Even if because those numbers cannot go away. The moment it goes down, that's when we don't have consistent, predictable income. Shout out to Dan Roshan, my coach.